All right, so you know how we all tell stories, right? Like it's just something we do. But what if we could like harness that power? That's what we're diving into today.
And we've got some really interesting stuff to work with. We're looking at insights from Philip Hum. He's a big deal in the business storytelling world. And even a fascinating anecdote from Disney's Bob Iger.
The Bob Iger. Okay, you've got my attention. But first, like, why even bother with all this story stuff? Isn't just saying what we mean enough?
You'd think so, but our brains are wired a little differently. We're drawn to stories almost instinctively. Think about it.
Yeah.
You're on Amazon about to buy something.
I'm hitting those reviews 100%. Give me that messy, real-life experience over a fancy product description any day.
Exactly. We trust those lived experiences more than just, cold hard facts. It's how we make decisions looking to other people's stories.
So it's not just what we say, but how we frame it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's this study at Stanford. Students listened to speeches, and afterwards they only remembered a measly 5% of the statistics thrown at them.
5%. Ouch! That's like barely anything. What about the rest?
Here's the kicker. 63% of what they remembered were the stories from those speeches.
Whoa. Okay, stories stick with us. Got it. But
Right.
does that translate to like real world impact?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can even create tangible value.
Yeah.
There's this study where researchers bought a bunch of, well, let's be honest, pretty random stuff from a thrift store.
Like what kind of RAM? We're talking old board games, that funky lamp you swear you had as a kid.
That kind of stuff. Objects with, let's just say, minimal inherent value.
Okay, so they've got a thrift store haul. Then what?
They brought in writers, crafted fictional, totally made-up backstories for these objects, and included those stories in eBay listings.
Wait, seriously, just added a story. Did it even work?
It's insane.
Uh.
Those random thrift store finds, just with a little narrative boost, sold for an average of 2,700% more than what they originally paid.
No way. 2,700%. That's
Hey,
wild.
That's wild. It really shows you the power of narrative. Those stories added an intangible value, a sense of uniqueness and emotional connection. People weren't just buying an object, they were buying a story, an experience.
Okay, you've got me hooked on the power of stories. But it gets
Huh?
even wilder, right? Something about oxytocin.
Oh yeah, this one blew my mind. Researchers found that listening to narratives with really strong emotional arcs actually increased people's oxytocin levels,
Wait, oxytocin, isn't that like the love hormone?
the one and only. And when our brains release oxytocin, we become more trusting, more open to new ideas, even more generous. Just think, a well-told story can literally make people more receptive to what you're saying.
So we've got stories making us memorable, boosting value, and even like chemically making people like us more. Sign me up. But how do we actually do it? How do we create these captivating stories?
Structure. It's like the scaffolding for your story. One source pointed to this acronym, CARD. Context, adversity, resolution, and takeaway. It's simple but effective.
All right, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me. What's context all about?
Think of it like setting the stage, right? Who are the characters? Where are they? When is this happening? You want to ground your listener in your story's world before you take them on the emotional roller coaster.
So, like, if I'm telling you about a crazy day at work, I shouldn't just launch into the chaos. I need to first paint a picture of the team, the deadlines, the whole vibe.
Exactly. You set the scene so your listener feels grounded, and then you can bring in the good stuff.
Okay, context, check. But adversity, that sounds kind of scary. Do we really need that?
Every good story needs a little tension. It's what keeps things interesting, right? It doesn't have to be some life or death drama, just a challenge to overcome, a goal that seems out of reach.
Hmm.
Without adversity, you've just got a recounting of facts, no story.
So in my work example, the adversity would be like the server crashing right before a big presentation.
Perfect example. And that takes us to resolution. How did you overcome that server meltdown? What did you do? This is where you, as let's say, the hero of your story, you get to showcase your problem-solving skills, your resilience, you're awesome under pressure.
I can see how highlighting those moments of resolution, even in everyday stories, makes you seem more, I don't know, competent. Like, you've got this.
Precisely. And finally, the takeaway. This is the so what of your story.
Mm.
What did you learn from that experience? What do you want your listener to walk away with?
This card thing, this is genius. I can already feel myself like mentally reorganizing past experiences into this framework. It's a whole new way of thinking about my stories.
That's what we're going for, helping you unlock the stories already within you. And speaking of captivating stories, we've got one heck of an example. One of our sources actually featured an anecdote from Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney.
Oh, Iger, this is about to get good. Hit me with it. All right, so Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. What's the story? Lay it on me.
Okay, picture this. It's 2006, and Disney's about to buy Pixar. Huge deal, billions of dollars on the line. Everyone's gathered at Pixar headquarters, tensions running high. And suddenly, Steve Jobs, and this is Steve Jobs, right, asked Iger to go for a walk.
Whoa, talk about a curveball. Knowing Jobs, that could go anywhere. I mean, you don't just get a personal invite like that from a guy like him, especially with so much at stake. I'd be like freaking out a little, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Iger himself said he immediately thought, this is it, he's going to back out of the deal. Talk about a cliffhanger.
Right. So they're walking. What happens next?
Jobs leads him to this bench,
Yeah.
sits down, puts his arm around Iger, and Iger even mentions, like, we weren't even that close then, and drops a bombshell. His cancer's back.
Oh, wow. Heavy stuff. To share something that personal, that weighty in the middle of this mega deal, it just like hits different.
Totally. And think about Iger's position. He's got this huge announcement minutes away, and now he's dealing with this, like, deeply personal revelation.
So what did he do? I mean, did he even have time to process everything with, the clock ticking?
He did, and that's what's so great about how Iger tells this story. He doesn't shy away from the messiness of it all. Like, he shares his actual thoughts, the uncertainty, the lack of a clear path forward. He's just real about it.
It's kind of refreshing. We always think of these big-time CEOs as these, like, unflappable figures. But here's Iger showing us the human side, the doubts that anyone would feel.
Exactly. Makes him instantly relatable. He's not trying to be some hero who had all the answers. He's just honest about the struggle.
Okay, so how does the story even end? Did the deal fall apart?
So, Jobs, he's brutally honest, right? He basically gives Iger an out. Says he might only have a 50 chance of living for another 5 years. And Iger's looking at his watch, knowing the announcement is imminent. Talk about pressure.
Like something out of a movie, you've got the ticking clock, the weight of the deal, and this incredibly personal life or death situation all colliding.
And Iger, he even remembers the exact words Jobs used. He goes, my son is in high school. He's going to graduate in 4 years. I'm going to be at his graduation.
Wow. That line, it sends chills down your spine.
Right. He uses these vivid details. The bench, the arm around the shoulder, Jobs' exact words, and suddenly you're right there with them.
Okay, we've talked about the why, the science of it all. We've analyzed a master storyteller in action. But how do we actually use this stuff? Give me the tactics. What can we do, like starting today, to make our own communication more engaging?
Well, a lot of it comes down to starting strong. Like, think about a movie that grabs you from the first scene, right?
You're not messing around with boring backstory. You're jumping straight into the action.
Exactly. Like Iger describing Jobs asking him to go for a walk. Suddenly, we're hooked. We need to know more.
And you're saying we can do that in everyday conversations.
Absolutely. Instead of saying, oh, man, I had a crazy day, Trey, you wouldn't believe what happened at work today. Instantly, you've got their attention.
It's about creating that intrigue, even with the small stuff.
Precisely. Another big one show, don't tell. Instead of stating facts, paint a picture with your words.
Oh, totally. Like, instead of saying the meeting was tense, you could say something like, you could practically cut the tension in that meeting room with a knife. Everyone was, like, on edge.
Yeah.
Way more visual, right?
Exactly. You're not just giving information, you're pulling your listener into the experience.
This is making me realize how much I just default to those, like, flat statements. Instead of saying, I was so relieved when that presentation was over, I could say, when I finished that last slide and people actually clapped, I swear, this wave of relief just washed over me. It was like, finally, I could breathe again.
There you go. You went from a simple statement to a moment of feeling a story.
Okay, starting strong, painting that picture. What else? What other storytelling superpowers can we tap into?
Remember how Iger shared his inner monologue? Those raw, unfiltered thoughts? That's gold right there.
Because, let's be honest, our thoughts are rarely, like, perfectly crafted sentences, right? They're messy.
Exactly. Instead of just saying, I was so frustrated, I could feel the frustration building up inside me. I was like, this is hopeless? Why is this happening?
It's about letting people in, showing them the human behind the story.
And you know what often makes those inner thoughts even more compelling? Adding a time constraint.
Ooh. Yeah, I like where you're going with this. Tell me more.
Think about it. Deadlines, countdowns, even just a sense of urgency, they create instant drama.
It's like those cooking competition shows. 5 minutes left. Will they plate it in time?
Exactly. It taps into that, like, primal instinct of, can they do it? Iger at the clock, ticking down on that Pixar announcement. Suddenly, the stakes are higher. We're more invested.
So if I'm telling you about like racing to meet a deadline, instead of just saying I was up all night working, it's more like I glanced at the clock, 3 a.m. The presentation was due in 5 hours, and I still hadn't even started that last section.
Now, that's a story. You've got the time pressure, the specific challenge. We can practically feel the stress right alongside you.
Yeah.
Way more engaging than a flat statement.
It's amazing how these like small tweaks can make such a difference. I'm also noticing that a lot of this comes down to being, I don't know, vulnerable, letting people see the realness behind the story.
You're hitting on something huge. So many sources emphasized authenticity. Don't be afraid to show your flaws, your moments of doubt, even if it feels counterintuitive, you know?
It's like that saying, perfection is the enemy of good, right?
Yeah.
By trying to present this like perfectly polished image, we actually make ourselves less relatable, less human.
100%. Remember Iger admitting he didn't know what to do when Jobs shared his diagnosis? That vulnerability, that honesty, that's what made the story so powerful.
This is making me rethink how I approach even casual conversations. I tend to just like skip to the good part, gloss over the struggles,
Yeah.
but those struggles, those are what people connect with, right?
Absolutely. It shows you're not afraid to be real, that you understand the challenges others might be facing too. Plus, it makes the resolution that much more satisfying. It's like any good movie, right? We need to see the hero struggle to really appreciate their triumph. So instead of just saying, oh, yeah, I nailed that interview, it's more impactful to say something like, honestly, I walked into that interview so nervous I could barely remember my own name. But I took a deep breath, remind myself of all the prep work I did, and by the end, I felt like I'd actually connected with the interviewer.
See, now you're not just bragging, you're sharing an experience, a process. You're showing that even when you doubt yourself, you can overcome challenges. That's huge.
This whole deep dive has been a masterclass. We went from the science of storytelling all the way to like actionable tips we can use right now. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up?
One source suggested this really simple but powerful daily practice. They said, every day, ask yourself, what was my story-worthy moment today?
Ooh, I like that. It's like training your brain to look for those little but meaningful moments that happen all around us.
Exactly. It could be a hilarious interaction on the bus, a moment of unexpected kindness, even just a small personal win.
Hmm.
The key is to start seeing your life through this narrative lens. It's there.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive on the power of storytelling, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away?
You have stories worth telling. Each and every one of us, we have this unique collection of experiences, insights, perspectives. Don't underestimate their power.
We've seen how stories can make us more memorable, how they can make our messages stick, how they can even create real, tangible value. And by really mastering the art of storytelling, we unlock this whole new level of connection and communication. It's powerful stuff.
So here's a little challenge for everyone listening. What's one small story you can share today? Maybe it's a funny thing your kid said or a time you helped a coworker out. Whatever it is, don't let it fade away. Share it. You might be surprised by the impact it has.
That's a wrap on another deep dive. Until next time, remember, your story matters. Go out there and tell it.